How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about the Steam Deck, and we are back in the yard. There's no table saws running, there's no trucks coming up and down the street, there's no construction work going on, so I figured I'd bring the tripod back out here and give everyone what they want. But the best part is I like filming out here too, so it's like a happy middle ground for all of us. In today's video, I'm going to be answering a question that I see in the comments a lot, because there are surprisingly a lot of people who watch this channel who are like right on the edge of buying a Steam Deck and need that little push to take the plunge. The question they always ask is the Steam Deck still worth it in 2025? And that's exactly what we're going to answer today, in addition to which one you should buy. And I kind of get the hesitation if you're one of those people, because the Steam Deck is 3 years old. And if you look at other PC handhelds out there, they are extremely iterative. We've had 3-ish generations of the ROG Ally. We got the white one, we got the X, now we're on the Xbox ROG Ally. There's technically 3 generations of the Legion Go as well. You've got the regular Legion Go, you've got the S, now you've got the Legion Go 2. I mean, how many Aya Neo devices have there been? If you look at any other handheld except for the Steam Deck, there have been multiple iterative generations of these handhelds that basically change the whole performance shakedown of the handheld you're looking at, whereas the Steam Deck, it hasn't really changed all that much in terms of performance over the past 3 years. So if you look at that, you're like, oh, is Valve going to release a brand new Steam Deck anytime soon? And I think the answer for now is no. I think you've still got at least a couple of years of life left in the Steam Deck, to the point where you could buy one right now and get some solid game time out of it, get your head around SteamOS, the operating system, playing games on it, dialing in the settings and everything like that, to the point where when they do release the Steam Deck 2 that they're hard at work on right now, you'll feel simultaneously like you got a solid money's worth experience out of your first Steam Deck, and you'll probably be excited to either sell it, keep it, trade it in, do whatever you want with it, and at least get the Steam Deck 2 and get a meaningful upgrade from that device. Because that's why I think it's going to take a little bit. Valve has been very upfront since the Steam Deck came out that they're not going to release a Steam Deck 2 unless there's a generational leap in performance and you still get good battery life along with it. As we've seen from the Z2 Extreme, you get good battery life out of it, but it's nowhere near a generational leap in performance, to the point where if you watch pretty much any ROG Ally video from someone who's been around the block with these handhelds, they're going to tell you the smartest move is to go to Best Buy, try to find an open box ROG Ally X, or, you know, go on Facebook Marketplace and try and pay $450, $500 for it, because that's half the price of the new one. So the generational leap did not come with the Z2 Extreme. It's like 2 to 3 FPS better. And if Valve stays true to their word, that means you're going to have to wait at least a couple of years, probably 2027 at the earliest, 2028 at the latest, because it's going to line up with the homegrown Xbox handheld, the homegrown PS6 handheld. If Sony is working with AMD right now to make a handheld version of the PS6 chip, I think AMD is probably working with Valve to do the same thing for a Steam Deck 2, and I'm fine with that, because that brings me to the second point, which is the Steam Deck is surprisingly holding up very well in terms of performance. I think that's another big worry people have, because there are so many websites putting out articles all the time focusing on games that can't run on the Steam Deck, and they're creating an environment where it seems like nothing runs on the Steam Deck, whereas it's a few strong outliers that don't work well on the Steam Deck, whereas 99% of the other stuff that comes out throughout the year runs incredibly well, if not fantastic. And there's a really cool thing that's happening because Steam Deck players are so dedicated, where developers are kind of going back to older games that traditionally didn't work on the Steam Deck or work well on the Steam Deck, like Baldur's Gate 3, and they're either building in native Steam Deck graphics presets, which is kind of like the easiest thing you can do, but in the case of Baldur's Gate 3, they're putting in a lot of extra legwork to make a Steam Deck native version of the game. It's a Linux version of the game, but they're keeping the Steam Deck in mind, because unlike Linux desktops, they know there are like 4 or 5 million Steam Deck users out there at this point, and unlike other platforms, they don't just buy this thing, use it for a couple of months, and throw it in a drawer. They're extremely dedicated. There's always people playing on Steam Deck, there's always people looking for new games. This is the only news-based channel I've ever done where I can do videos of games I'm playing, like for Next Fest or sale recommendations, and they actually perform well, because people are actually interested in playing a lot of new games on the Steam Deck, and because you could basically play it anywhere, like on the couch, on a plane, out in your yard, by the fire pit over there, you probably churn through games a lot quicker on the Steam Deck than you do on other platforms where you have to compete with other people in your house to use the TV, or, you know, at the end of a workday, you're just too tired to boot up the entire PC, sit down at your desk, and then you make that choice to go to bed. But for me, when I'm at that level of tired, going to bed means playing my Steam Deck with the TV in front of our bed on, playing a murder show or something like that. And I have been churning through so many new games since the Steam Deck came out, and even old games as well. The two problem children you're gonna have to grapple with though 100% are of course Unreal Engine 5 games and games with anti-cheat. So if you want to play Battlefield 6, you're gonna have to do a little extra legwork to stream it from a desktop PC or your PlayStation 5. Thankfully, streaming from a PC is dead simple to set up because the Steam Deck has a built-in remote play feature, which is great. There's also the GeForce Now native app, which all you have to do is go into desktop mode, go to the GeForce Now website, sign up for one of their subscription tiers, download it, install it, then you're good to go. You can get pretty good latency over there where you'll still be competitive in Battlefield, because while it is a quick-paced shooter in certain moments, it's a little more chill, a little more relaxed than what you experience in a lot of Call of Duty lobbies, so you can still be performant in Battlefield streaming over GeForce Now or from your desktop PC. And while streaming from PS5 does take a little bit of a time investment to get set up, it's still a good alternative. And you can do that with any game that doesn't have anti-cheat support. So even in those scenarios where multiplayer gaming seems like a big roadblock that's harder to get over, you have a way to kind of get around it. Even if it's not the most elegant solution, it is there. I will say though, I don't really run into a lot of experiences that I can't play multiplayer wise on the Steam Deck. One of my biggest kind of white whales was the Crew Motorfest, and then over the summer Ubisoft silently updated it to use the anti-cheat that works on the Steam Deck, and then today when I'm recording this video they announced that it works fine on the Steam Deck and is verified for the deck. And if you set it to medium settings, 30 FPS, it is a very playable, if not enjoyable game, so that one was fixed. Outside of those, I mean, the games I play online like Battlefield, like Hunt Showdown, I want a mouse and keyboard anyway and higher FPS and lowest latency, so I've never even thought to want to play those games on the Steam Deck. And I know there are other games out there that people want to play like Destiny 2 or GTA Online, but for me personally, it hasn't really been that big of a roadblock. As far as Unreal Engine 5 goes, I mean, it is a bummer that games like Borderlands 4, Metal Gear Solid Delta, Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill F don't run amazingly on the Steam Deck because of that engine, but Silent Hill F is a little bit of an outlier because it shows that when developers put time and energy into finishing their games and optimizing them well, you can get a playable experience, and that is also proven by Tokyo Extreme Racer, which runs incredibly on the deck. Also, you have to keep in mind that it's not the Steam Deck that's an outlier with Unreal Engine 5. Whether you're on PS5, Xbox Series X, dedicated gaming PC, ROG Ally, or of course the Steam Deck, you're going to run into issues with Unreal Engine 5 games. So it's not that it's an outlier that runs these games in this engine like crap. It runs like crap on everything, but you just need a higher overhead of hardware than most people have. So one of the issues you can get around by streaming. The other one is probably going to resolve itself once these developers learn that people have caught on to Unreal Engine 5 being a problem. So they're just, whether they like it or not, going to have to start optimizing their games for everything, which will only benefit the Steam Deck in the long run. And when it comes to Unreal Engine 5, one thing that's really going to help the Steam Deck is the Switch 2. If developers are going through the work to optimize these games for Switch 2, all of that extra work is only going to benefit the Steam Deck, because while there is a little bit of a difference in terms of raw horsepower between those two devices, if you put them in a batch of like hardware quality ranges, they're basically in the same pool, where any optimization that helps the Switch 2 can be backported to the PC version in a patch that will definitely come along with the Switch 2 patch. It'll just be called the Steam Deck preset. So the Switch 2 selling as well as it is, getting more people out there playing games on handhelds like the Switch 2, it only benefits the Steam Deck. So I think even though this thing's 3 years old and not the most performant device in the world, it's going to continue to get updates as time has gone on. And AAA has just been in a really weird spot over the past couple of years. People are kind of turning more and more to indie games, which is good for the Steam Deck because indie games across the board look and run amazing on Steam Deck. If you're someone like me who likes these hardcore tactical extraction shooters, you've had a little bit of a worse time. Like, I was working on a video about Next Fest demos, and a lot of the games that I downloaded just straight up didn't have controller support at all, and I didn't feel like mapping all of my different controls just for a demo. I was trying to play Road to Vostok's demo, and it just doesn't work well. Certain games I'll wait to play on the Steam Deck until they get a specific patch, like Expedition 33. The developers have confirmed they're working on Steam Deck specific optimizations, so once that happens, I'll play the game and I'll enjoy it most on a handheld, because I just am one of those people where I categorize things on where I'd like to play them. And I think one of the biggest hesitation points that that's created for people is, of course, that performance. And if you look closely, most of the people saying that the Steam Deck is underpowered, can't run any games well, X, Y, and Z, like all the complaints that people have on Twitter, in articles on YouTube, 99.9% of the time, it's from someone who's either a really big fan of something like the Switch 2 or the ROG Ally or the Legion Go, or it's someone who doesn't have a horse in the race to begin with because they don't play on handhelds. If you talk to anyone, whether it's me, whether it's Felix from Deck Filter, whether it's Fan the Deck, whether it's anyone who actually plays on the Steam Deck, you'll get that question like, is the Steam Deck still performant? And you kind of stop for a second and think, yeah, like, why are you even asking? I haven't run into major performance issues ever on the Steam Deck outside of a few outlier games, but most of the time I spend playing on the Steam Deck has been incredible. Like just this month, I've sunk 55 hours into Dying Light 1 and the following expansion, and I have not run into a single issue. And even though it's a 10-year-old game, it still feels completely modern. And another brand new game I've played at least 10 or 15 hours of, if I remember correctly, is Tokyo Extreme Racers. So whether it's a brand new game or one that's 10 years old, I haven't had any performance issues that are really worth even mentioning because they take 2 seconds to fix if they even do happen. So if you're someone who's already used to playing on PC, I think it still is in that no-brainer purchase realm because it's the cheapest handheld on the block. It just went on sale for $329 for the 256 gig LCD model, which is totally fine. Like, you do get a couple of benefits by buying the OLED outside of the OLED screen. You get slightly better battery life. It's like 10 to 15%, which some people will act like is a huge deal. But if you're playing a AAA game, it amounts to like 15 or 20 minutes of extra battery. If you're playing an indie game, it could be a couple of hours of extra battery, but you're already getting such good battery life in a smaller indie game to begin with on the LCD that I don't think it's going to be make or break for most people. And the newer Steam Decks, where after the refresh, like the 256 LCD and the new OLED, I think they come with longer chargers. So I usually play plugged in when I'm on the couch anyway, so it hasn't really been that noticeable to have that better battery life. You do get a little bit of a performance bump out of the OLED that'll just smooth out frame times in some more demanding games, but that was more relevant, I think, when it came out to me than it is now, because the vast majority of people out there, I think, are buying the LCD and are happy with it. But if you want the best screen quality, the best battery life, the absolute best performance that you can get on a Steam Deck, you could pay a little bit more for OLED, and I think you'd be happy. But if you're one of these people who are worried about the Steam Deck 2 coming out, like, I would just wait for a sale that brings it back down to $329 again, like the Thanksgiving sale, the Christmas sale, any of the sales that are coming up throughout the end of the year. And I think you'll be a lot happier if they do announce a Steam Deck 2 in the next couple of years if you go for the cheaper LCD model. But even if they don't, like, they take a little bit longer than that, it's not like the LCD model is so bad that you're going to feel like you regret not buying the OLED. And any money you save buying that cheaper LCD model, you can then invest in an SSD upgrade or a bigger SD card, or of course more games to play on the Steam Deck. So like, if I was younger and I didn't have a little bit more disposable income, I personally would buy the LCD, probably the 256 one, and then I'd save up my extra money to get a bigger SSD or a big SD card. But now, as someone with a little bit more disposable income, like, I'm not swimming in money or anything, I can just like safely buy things without feeling like I'm gonna go broke. I just go for the best possible thing I can get to save myself a headache down the line. So like, older me, definitely Steam Deck OLED, younger me, Steam Deck LCD. But it's such a hard question to answer because it's like, it really depends on what specific kind of person you are, and Valve makes it hard by having done such a great job with the platform as a whole, where you really can't go wrong. So to answer your two biggest questions in the comments, yeah, the Steam Deck is worth buying in 2025, really any way you slice it. And also which one you should buy really comes down to which one you can afford. And it's not really a cop-out answer, because I think you'll be happy with any Steam Deck because it's so upgradable and it's such a good platform at its base. They really focused on ergonomics. They really focused on quality hardware, no matter which one you get. And they focused on good battery life, great screen quality on either one, and decent performance in bigger games and great performance in smaller games. It's really the jack of all trades, master of everything it tries to do. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.